Welcome at Art Talks. Today we have as a guest Julia Janssen. Julia is a researcher, an artist, and data protection ambassador. We will have a conversation on art, technology, creativity, and challenging the status quo. So, Julia, welcome.
Thank you.
I want to start with a question, and the first question is: how did you venture into the art world?
Well, I knew from a very young age that I wanted to be an artist, or at least wanted to go to art school. So when I went to art school, I was actually also thinking I really like mathematics in high school as well. So I tried to kind of find a way to combine both, so both mathematics and art. So I was a little bit kind of a data weird mathematical nerd in art school, but I really kind of liked to intertwine those, and I never kind of knew or expected to kind of build on the foundations of what I'm doing today, which is dedicating my art practice to data, technology, and the impact of the internet on our society. So yeah, actually, well, I was very convinced at a very young age that I wanted to go to art school and find my way there. Yeah, challenging time though.
And somehow you are combining worlds, because it's not that that you're diving into art solely. You're really connecting art to technology. Can you expand first before we go to your artwork?
Yeah,
how that came about?
Yeah, so when I was graduating art school, that was in 2016, before all kind of major scandals that happened in the tech world. For some reason, it kind of clicked to me like, what is happening on the internet with our data? Because big tech companies, they're making a lot of money out of our vulnerabilities, out of our data, profiling, and all these things. Why are we not in a position of having any control or any say or grip on our identity or data? So that kind of occurred to me at some point. It was kind of weird at the time because nobody was really concerned. Mark Zuckerberg was still like a hero connecting the world. That kind of changed that year as well. But for some reason I think with having that background in liking mathematics and art already, feeling like, hey, maybe with art and with installations, I can show the complexity of these systems and create awareness of what's actually happening beneath the surface of the phone that we use or the interfaces or the tools that we're using. So yeah, from there I started, but it was kind of pioneering and it was kind of scary because I was also a very young woman, just graduating art school. No idea how to kind of make a profession out of that at all. But somehow with a lot of help and also dedication, I guess, I found my way there.
And we're talking time-wise, this was about 8 years ago?
Yes, 2016.
2016. Yeah. So in a time where basically you were pioneering in voicing a message that wasn't fully understood at that time. How did you start? What were the first projects or initiatives that you wanted to bring awareness on? Can you share a bit about the topics that came about?
Yeah, so the first project was really about kind of the monetization system of data, which kind of ended up in also a kind of complex installation, I would say, to kind of try to understand all the money and the currency that goes into data, the whole kind of data economics. But I think the moment that it became very kind of clear what I wanted to do with that was in 2018-19. Because I was just kind of, researching the internet as I do. And I came across a cookie banner, which is kind of normal. We all face them daily. Usually you don't think twice and you just kind of click on accept. But I felt like, okay, what happens when I do like manage settings or the options. And there kind of unfolded a whole world of 835 companies that I would all accept with that one click. And I felt like, wow, this is actually quite insane. And this is probably happening all across the internet. This was from the Daily Mail, and I collected all those privacy policies manually, printed them into a very, very, very large book with tiny text. It was in 2018 that I kind of collected them all. And then after some exhibitions with the book, it also kind of struck me like it's not an art piece on itself, but it's just a collection of text. But what is written in that text and how to mobilize actually people to also kind of read them, understand the impact, the gravity of it. So I built a pop-up radio studio and I started to read the privacy policies out loud. So I did the first page myself, but I also knew this is going to take hundreds of hours. So the idea of the installation is that I invite people to read from the book for 12 minutes to make kind of a collective piece, kind of a collective performance. So it's have been traveling around for a while. And it's very beautiful to also give people a voice in that, literally a voice, because it's also a way of kind of activism, I guess, to kind of speak up, like, because with also our very kind of progressive legal framework here in Europe, this is still legal. Like, this is legally binding informed consent. The question is, how can you be informed when you click
in one button
and then agree to up to almost thousands of companies at the same time collecting your data? So kind of I want to question, like, why is that fair? How is that also you as a person or a citizen, as a digital citizen, protected? So these are kind of the questions that I wanted to address with that.
So in a way, it's quite profound, because everybody's just sitting on the internet, clicking on a button. I mean, starting perhaps with a banner, and you basically make visible what is behind that one click.
Exactly, yeah. The sad thing is, though, even if you read the whole lot and spent the whole 400 hours and challenging the legal text, you still have to agree in order to use the website.
Yeah, so there is no choice.
There's no choice, there's no voluntariness. All these values that are very important within giving informed consent are completely evaporated. And that's happening on the internet all the time. The things that we in our offline presence find very important, things like equality, democracy, fairness, autonomy, it kind of evaporates on the internet because we have a free application. And that is just something that is so strange to me, especially because we're constantly surveilled, monitored, and these big tech corporations, they're not building these tools or platforms in order to make us more happy, but also to just kind of monetize on us.
Yeah, so it's also showcasing sort of sometimes the one-sidedness of something which is going on the internet, because starting the internet, there is making the world's information universally accessible, which is a good thing.
Right.
But then when you zoom into, okay, but how is it being applied? You uncover basically the essence of, how should we act as society or as humanity? What were the first reactions when you started reading those texts out loud? Because I can imagine it did something.
Yeah, I think most people found it very unsatisfying, because you read for 12 minutes, you do a lot of effort, and then you barely read a page, like literally not at all. And then you feel like, whoa, this is kind of massive. People found it also very meditative, because, you know, it's kind of a whole trance that you come in. I also say, like, you can do your own performance, you can shout or do it very monotone, or
just
do it
emerge what
exactly.
Wants to happen
Most people just kind of try to move forward to the second, because it's quite difficult. But I think that's kind of interesting, and people were like super aware. I still hear after so many years that people I just come across on the street that say, like, hey, you were the girl from that book, right? Well, now I actually think twice before I try to click on accept, or now you have all these options, but still it's very complex to navigate, because now we have options where you can say, I don't want functional cookies and this, but that requires also a lot of understanding. It also puts a lot of responsibility on people. Like, if you want to be protected, then you have to be informed, you have to read, you have to understand all these systems. So I think there we still need to overcome a lot, but I think it's very beautiful. It also went into politics. Like, one of the readers of the book was a former vice fraction leader of the Green Left. She took an opportunity to actually talk about it in Parliament. Like, is this the way that we have to grant informed consent? Doesn't need to be like the other way around. So it's very interesting to see my art kind of entering the field of politics and the legal field as well. Yeah.
So with your art, one, there is this awareness on an individual level that people sort of understand, because you really make it visible in the moment what the impact is of that one click. But then again, the impact of having your art installation also travels wider to the field of politics, and
it does
from a legal perspective as well.
Yeah.
What is the legal link that you make?
Yeah, so very interesting. A couple of years ago I was invited by the Dutch Data Protection Foundation, or Stichting Databescherming Nederland. They contact me first in kind of secret, saying, like, hey, we're kind of trying to build some kind of counterweight to challenge big tech. We're building a team. Are you interested? Well, after a lot of kind of weird talks, I signed an NDA, and then they said, like, so we're suing Twitter. And I was like, oh, damn, wow.
Oh, wow,
okay.
This is what I'm embarking into.
So first we worked in secret for about 10 months to kind of prepare everything. So they invited me to be both part of the campaign team, kind of creating campaigns, because they say like we can have all the legal ground and saying like this is illegal what you're doing, because they were collecting personal data from over 30,000 free applications. Like you can never have given informed consent for that. You don't know if you install 𝗔𝗿𝗁, the Weather Channel, 𝗔𝗿𝘁 𝗧𝗹𝗸𝘀, Happen, all these apps, that you also kind of comply to those terms. So and also being the ambassador of the foundation, so kind of the public face, which is super interesting, because it kind of gave me the opportunity to not only create awareness, but also mobilize people to stand up for their rights. Because these systems are highly complicated. It's just too much responsibility, but also demanding too much from people to understand, but also to take action. People feel like there's something happening on the internet and it's not right. But what can I do? Because I also just want to use the app. So I think we have to kind of create this framework where we in the basis are protected. And that's why we try to kind of, hold these companies responsible for such kind of interference of people's freedom, of autonomy, and at the moment also disrupting democracy at a very, very, very clear way. I mean, it's happening for years. So yeah, we have a lawsuit against 𝗔𝗿𝘁 at the moment, Amazon and Adobe. They're all similar cases, but slightly different in details. It's very interesting to go to these hearings, to talk with the lawyers about what they think. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not working on the subpoena, but kind of how to get people on board with it. You know?
Yeah, you can translate from the legal aspects into the narrative that is basically make people understand more what it's about.
Exactly. So we also try to provide a lot of knowledge to campaigns. We try to kind of give people some tools or some understanding of, hey, this is how you can access your data or delete your data. These are your rights. Maybe use Signal instead of WhatsApp. Maybe this is what Proton does. Kind of, we try to kind of give them some knowledge, some hands-on information. So it's really fun also to work with them as well.
Yeah, and you see it now. If we look around, also with the AI was already there for a long time, but now recently there is more to it. Is there something you can share about how you make the connection to then also AI on top of it?
Yes, for sure. Yeah. So recently, actually, so I think for many years I've been trying to kind of understand all the infrastructures of data and the legal kind of frameworks, and I felt like maybe it's also interesting or important or a good moment in time to kind of challenge also our relationship with technology in a more fundamental, maybe also a more philosophical way. We tend to kind of what I call live within the margins of algorithms. We just do whatever is projected for us to like, saying like, hey, this is the best choice for Julia today. Best pick. Others like you like this as well, which feels very easy. It's called frictionless, you know, but frictionlessness comes also with a lot of obedience to the machine, to the industry and their incentives to hold your attention and all these things, but also to your own prophecy, because we're going to live within our own patterns, within our own prophecy projected by
so you dive into some sort of rabbit hole,
right?
While the world around you is much bigger, and that maybe is a nice bridge, because you also shared about a new project you're working on, which is called Oblivion.
Mapping the Oblivion.
Mapping the Oblivion.
Yes.
What would you like to share about Mapping the Oblivion? Because I think that that is in essence what this is about.
It is exactly that, yeah. So what it does, I researched my father's and my grandmother's Netflix algorithm.
Okay, also it.
To make kind of a family portrait, but then based on our data and our algorithms. And it occurred to me, like, on Netflix there are 7,000 titles to be found, but daily we get to see about 300 to 350 per person, which is about 5% of the whole platform. It's just a fraction. It's very interesting because it feels like endless, you know, search and opportunities, but it's highly curated and tailored. And these are systems that are applied all across the internet, like the way that we search, how we find news, and we're kind of filtered and tunneled into kind of thinking or liking or doing certain things, and we are very unaware of how that's happening. Also, that frictionless, it feels very easy. It means also that in the project I'm especially focused on percentage-based predictions. So saying like, you will like this for 88%, and you will like that for 92%. what does
what
that
is the
mean?
difference between the 88 and the 92?
Exactly. Like there is no transparency on what data it's trained on, what is the definition of success, but also if you like something for, I don't know, 64%, what don't you like for 36? Like,
and the 36% isn't shown. So basically you are funneled into a subset of, in a way, if you would translate it into the world of information, and in this case Netflix,
right?
You're already served only a small percentage, and then within that percentage you're basically going deeper into a
because it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy,
which is not necessarily the thing that might be beneficial for you from a wider perspective.
No, for sure, and especially if you think that in terms of like news or the way that we consume information and all these kind of things. Also with ChatGPT or now DeepSeek and all this kind of generative AI and how we use it, I think it's interesting there to not say it's per se bad to sometimes lean into a projection. I think it's important to question what 95 or 99% I don't get to see, and how is that maybe very interesting or beneficial to life, because I feel like big tech, they're changing the way and our notion of what intelligence is or should be. With artificial intelligence, we're saying optimization, efficiency, frictionlessness, that is what intelligence now should be. Where I feel like, for example, maybe it's very intelligent to, if a kid asks, hey, ChatGPT, can you write me a paper on, I don't know, dolphins? If it's not saying, sure, here is 3,000 words on dolphins, but like, no, dummy, do it yourself because it's fun and you learn something.
Or here are some sort of prompts that you can use yourself to, to discover the world of dolphins with your own human intelligence.
Yes, exactly, because I feel like our brain is a muscle we need to practice, and if we kind of outsource very basic choices or very basic tasks to AI, which is sometimes nice, but sometimes it also takes away the moment to kind of challenge your own brain or structure your mind or kind of go into friction to come to something new. And I think that's very important, especially for kids, but also for elderly, like for everybody.
And that, I think, is also
to keep on practice.
I can imagine that is also something from an educational perspective,
for sure,
to bring into education.
How do we learn? How do we learn? But also how we have a critical notion towards technology and what it can and what it can't do, but also what it gives and what it takes away. Sometimes I think that's very important, especially kids. Like, for example, growing up. Think about AI projecting probably everything. I mean, now it's projecting that you will like this title for 92%, for example. Maybe it will also do that for career, love, education, and all the things that we do or pursue in life. But then what will be the purpose? Like, if you literally have an AI or a statistics kind of deciding everything for you, where to go, what to eat, when to do this, whom to love, for example, and you will have a relationship with this person because 92% chance of this, and like, what world are we going to live in? And I think I'm not so scared of AI taking over jobs. I think it's fundamentally changing our nature, because for the past hundreds, thousands, so many thousands of years, we've become like a smarter species, like more intelligent, and now we're kind of on the edge of collapsing to become very obedient to a machine that we also do not really understand, which is kind of super biased and unfair and driven by commercial interest. And I feel like that's something that's just not a world that I accept.
No, I think that's not only fair. I think the challenge of our time is not to develop more or better technology, but basically define the relationship as a human and bring human aspects into technology, bring the heart back into technology.
I mean, embrace friction sometimes, because it actually can create more beautiful, like, I cannot make art or do anything without having a little bit of friction there, or a lot of friction there, because otherwise we're just repeating patterns. And that's what AI can do very well. Repeating patterns, learning or observing kind of things that maybe a human mind doesn't, but creating something new or completely kind of weird, or doing something that leads to another thing that is very unexpected.
So bring creativity back.
Exactly. And not creativity in a way like how to create different type of business model to monetize.
No, but more the human creativity of living.
Exactly. Because I feel like if we will solely live within the margins of algorithms, then what does it mean to be human? Like, what will be the purpose? Everybody will be kind of the same, a little bit bored, and a little bit sad.
Yeah, that's my tears. My eyes are tearing, not because I get sad, but because of the light.
Yeah.
But before we go to, I think, the final questions, I just want to, because we have the artwork also on the screen, it would be lovely to see, because you talk a lot about patterns. Can you just explain a little bit on what people see when they see the installation mapping Oblivion? Mapping the Oblivion.
So what you see is actually the background, the pink blobs. They have all the text, so the 7,000 titles in very, very tiny typography, and with a lot of holes drilled into it. And in the hole, so if a title, like you have the pattern 3 times repeated, and it's a huge wall. It was created for the Biennale in Venice at first, and now it's kind of traveling in a different setting. So you have one kind of pattern per person, and so when there is a flag placed, and it's a recommendation at that moment for either me, or if it's on my dad's panel, it's for him. And there you see different type of patterns occurring from the flags and how they're placed. Interesting detail on this project was finding out that my grandmother is actually profiled in liking Korean horror. And
we'll keep this in. This is quite nice.
Right? I was like, how and why?
And why?
But well, the thing was, she never actually left like her village in the south of the Netherlands. So that was kind of striking for me. But I think she was kind of also the perfect person for this because she actually also thinks, like, she just clicks, like whatever is projected, whatever shows up.
She follows the algorithm.
She follows, so she's like sucked into that rabbit hole and kind of never probably get out. So that's kind of interesting to see. But so you see where there's a lot of flags, then it's kind of a whole concentration of things that you will like. Sometimes there are random flags placed because I don't know, it follows kind of your streaming algorithm, and you see the flags. There's like a black and light kind of line. The white means what you don't like, so they're all percentages. So for example, 36% white and 64% black, which means that is then kind of the probability of how you will like it. The interesting part about the installation is this is just one day. Many of these projections change overnight because you're profiled like you and people like you. So it can be that one day something is presented to you like you will like this for 92%, and the next day it's outside of your algorithm. It's unfindable for you unless you can actively search. Because so that's kind of interesting. It happens kind of with if people in your profile watch other things, your algorithm will change there as well. It's also that probably a lot of titles that are owned by Netflix score always higher because that's kind of their business model. So that's kind of also interesting to see there. So how you can look at it, like from, like if you step out, you can see patterns occurring. Like you can kind of see, because the blobs are divided by kind of genres. So for example, on the top, you can see the Korean horror, for example, or in the middle, the drama, and you can see kind of the patterns occurring, so what we will like. And if you come very close, you can see the titles and the very intimate kind of details of the installations. On the bottom, there is a video installation where I have conversations with my dad and my grandmother and kind of with myself as well on kind of the bigger questions that I wanted to ask with the installations. And it kind of peeks into our living rooms to kind of have a little kind of idea of who we are without having a full face portrait.
So it makes the algorithm really personal, because you see what happens in your family and what the relationship between the three of you is. But then it also pulls you into your living room even in the conversation, so that you really feel this is what is happening. Wow. Normally you just see the overview of suggestions.
And it's interesting also because kind of these platforms now, for example, Netflix is kind of dictating our family story, I guess. And I think, I mean, I'm not suggesting that we should go back to having 3 channels to choose from. But the thing is, we have a very different reality all. Because we see the world profiled differently. If it's either Netflix or your Instagram timeline or TikTok or search results on Google, everything is tailored to you. And if you're not aware of that, you will just assume like this is what the world looks like, or this is my reality, or this is what people think. So I think that creates kind of, polarization and a very diverse, like further apart landscape from each other, because how to have a conversation on things in the news, for example, or what we watched, if we do not have a shared memory or a shared history. So that is something that I feel like sometimes we have to kind of find ways maybe to maybe interact or to play around with. For example, I was looking at my dad's algorithm and I was like, I want to see the world, or Netflix at least, through your eyes, because he just got way better titles than me. I sometimes feel like, oh, there's like nothing on there, and then I feel like, oh, you have
but his view is much better.
So maybe sometimes it's interesting to think about, can we swap algorithms? Can you look through maybe your eyes to see what kind of results you get on Google and I get on Google, because they're very different. And I think that kind of can maybe help to play around with these kind of things. I'm actually writing a book about this as well, this and much more, to kind of find ways to create a little bit of humanity, friction, intelligence, creativity kind of back into the internet, and to kind of fight hope for a better digital future.
Yeah, but I think that's a nice way to end our conversation, because if you talk about hope, also the generations that are coming after us, what would be something then, with everything you've now seen in the past years as an artist, a research, and even now a data protection ambassador, what is it that you want to give along to the next generation or the younger people that are now looking into, hey, how do I find my way, position, role in life?
Well, the thing is, I mean, we have to think they're not only like consumers of kind of today's technology, they're also the future builders of technology. So if we incorporate or kind of at least teach ethics and kind of all these very important values from the start, not saying like, oh, we want to have privacy, but all these very important values that are tied towards privacy, like equality, democracy, freedom, autonomy, then we can also kind of foresee actually kind of, because now they're probably kind of graduate and think like, well, the big money is at Meta or Google or Apple, just convenient to go there. What kind of world do we want to live in? We have to kind of understand that data scientists or programmers, they're creating the digital world which is accessible, but also kind of determining most of people's life. So that's a huge responsibility, and it's not something to take lightly. And I think for so many years it was like just kind of regulation will hold back on innovation, just let kind of, you know, the whole neoliberal capitalistic spirits of the 90s, like just let the market sort it out. When we think about like maybe regulation is actually kind of a good thing, an innovative thing. It's not kind of pushing back. I think true innovation comes also when you do it without interfering human rights, because we did that hundreds of years ago. It's outdated. So think about kind of the world that you want to live in. And how to incorporate ethics and human rights from the start. And that's something that we have to make kind of a cool and fun and important thing, and not something like as a burden. No, it's not. Because it's a huge responsibility to build a digital future, because it's the foundation of probably everything in our life in so many years, especially. So bear that in mind, you know, that it's not just creating kind of, oh, this is an optimization tool because, I don't know, and maybe, many people are affected by it. So take that in mind. That's very interesting.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful notion to say, hey, let's leave everybody with that question. What is the world that you want to live in? What you want to live in? Also from the perspective of freedom, creativity, innovation, and not limited by a single
and I think like we can maybe think differently about like very capitalistic ideas, like profit maximization and never-ending growth. Like maybe that's not kind of the best way forward. Maybe data minimization is a way better way forward. For example, it's more about the quality of the data, and not all those big data, like bulking up and everything, because it's also kind of stored somewhere in you know, and highly impacting the environment and everything. So I think we have to completely and radically change our relationship with data in order to move forward to kind of a better digital world. Yeah.
And with that, I want to thank you for our beautiful conversation.
Thank you.